And so the day came, my mom went to the doctor or the abortion clinic, whatever, got on the table, and then God was like, hey, get up. You're going to have the baby.
Wow.
So she got up and left. And it was just like.
She heard God clear enough
Yep.
to say, oh, wow, I better listen to this and get up out of where I'm at now.
Yeah.
Wow. This is the Elevation Room, a space where we unpack life's hardest moments and the impact that they have on our faith, family, and fulfillment. I'm your host, Dustin Lale, and each episode we share real stories of resilience and breakthrough to inspire you to keep moving forward, rooted in your purpose, living on purpose, and walking with purpose. This journey we call life is not meant to be done alone. So click subscribe or the follow button now, settle in, and join us as we go into the Elevation Room. Well, welcome back to the Elevation Room. Today, I have with me my friend Christian Robertson. How are you, man?
What's up, dude? Man, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'm excited about this. I know we've been trying to schedule it for a couple of weeks now, so I'm glad to have you in the chair this time.
Yeah, man, it's good to be here. This is always pretty cool. Anytime we get to chat, I love it. So
cool, man. Well, hey, I'd love for our audience to just get a high-level understanding of who you are today, where you're at, and then we'll get into some of your backstory.
Yeah, for sure. I'm from Morgan City, Louisiana.
Okay,
so,
down south.
Yeah, down south. Not too far away from here in Lafayette. Grew up there all my life. My grandmother raised me.
Okay.
And an aunt, primarily. My mom was kind of in and out during my childhood and all of that. But grew up in this, Section 8 neighborhood, those were the good old days, though. Had some tough times here and there, but that's when everybody were outside playing, play basketball every day.
Be home when the lights turn on.
Exactly. Grew up there, went to high school there. Then once I graduated, I moved out here to Lafayette to go to UL.
Okay.
And I majored in sports medicine, so athletic training specifically. So cool story how I even got into that. Obviously, growing up, I was obviously going to the NBA.
Oh.
It was like foregone conclusion. Me and my cousins, we would talk like, all right, you're going to be on this team. You're going to be on this team. We're going to come together at some point and we're going to have these mansions and all of this stuff, we
big dreams.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, we love basketball. That's what we do. And so play basketball and all of that stuff growing up. But in 8th grade, we had to do a career paper. Okay. And my English teacher, I had told her, I'm doing mine. I'm going to the NBA. She's like, Christian, there are a million little black boys just like you who want to go to the NBA. So statistically, your odds aren't that great. I was like,
that is so funny. What are you doing crushing my dreams?
Yeah, exactly. And so then she was like, how about physical therapy? You get to work with athletes and stuff like that. I was like, I'll do it on that, but I'm going to the NBA. So as I was researching physical therapy, I found athletic training, which, they work hand in hand. But the athletic trainers, we are, a little closer to the action, on the field, on the court. Okay. When something happens, we get to go out and help and, help the athlete out and stuff like that. So I stuck with that. Very fun career. I have been doing that full time for like 11 years before I switched to more health administration. Okay. So now I work with informatics in healthcare and, helping with implementation in the clinics and hospitals and all of that stuff. So that's pretty cool. I met my wife in college. We were serving with Chi Alpha. Okay. So that's where I met her. She's from this small town, Pier Park, Louisiana.
Yeah, I had never heard of it before. You had told me about Pier Park. Yeah.
Yeah. So 25 minutes away from Morgan City. Okay. We didn't know each other before, obviously, but we met. We started dating tail end of our junior year, and we got married in 2013. And a month later, we moved to Denver. Okay. Yeah, we felt God was calling us to go help out with a church plant out there. And heard it clear as day. I was about to graduate. And one of our leaders was like, hey, we're going to be moving to Colorado, me and my family, to help with a church plant. And he's just talking to the guide leaders. And immediately I heard God say, and you're going to. I'm like,
Wow.
wait, what? I'm looking for jobs right now. I ain't trying to, this isn't the plan. Couldn't shake it. Just kept telling me. I told Blair, I remember it was around Festival International time. And I told her, I was like, I don't know what this means for us, but I feel like God is calling me to go to Colorado, to help. She was like, well, I want to be with you. So she started immediately looking up what does it take to get certified as a teacher in Colorado.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we decided to stay, get married for a year, and then move. So we followed that plan. She moved in after the wedding. A month later, we rented a U-Haul and
moved to Colorado.
Yep, moved to Colorado. Great time there. Served with some awesome people. And
how long were y'all in Colorado for?
3 years.
Okay.
Yeah. Felt like vacation for 3 years.
I bet.
Yeah.
That's
it's just
amazing.
Beautiful. Like being able to walk outside in the summer and not feel like you're suffocating.
Yeah. I remember when we went for a vacation and there were I think we were in Colorado Springs. We stopped at a few places and they kept discussing our, signs and just different little, I guess, facts for a tourist about how people who have respiratory diseases or illnesses or severe allergies move to Colorado because the air is so clear and, not suffocating to your point.
Right.
To your point. And, how helpful it is for them.
Yeah.
So I can imagine.
Yeah. It's a very healthy state. Everyone's like in shape or they work out and stuff like that. And you're a runner and I run. So altitude sickness is a real thing. It took me about 3 months to shake it. Like walking upstairs. Yeah. I get to the top and I'm like breathing hard. Yeah. I'm like,
what's going on?
I go for a run, I couldn't even go like 3 minutes. My chest felt like it was on fire. Wow. I was like, am I that out of shape? And it was just like the altitude, I was having delirium and stuff. It was crazy. It'd be pretty hard, but once you get used to it, you're good. You got to drink a lot of water.
Yeah.
But we worked our regular jobs. She was a teacher there. I worked in a clinic, treating patients and athletes, and helped out at a local high school with their sports and stuff like that on Friday nights. And did a lot of work with the church, though, community outreach things, small groups, with a church plant, everybody kind of helps with everything,
Gotcha.
So I may be running media or social media stuff or worship team or,
Gotcha.
all of these different things. It's kind of like all hands on deck.
Were y'all considered to be on staff or were y'all just, hey, God told us to be here, so we're just here as volunteers?
Yeah, exactly. Just as volunteers, Okay. So some people were like, really? Like, hey, God heard it clear as day.
Hey,
here I am.
And that's funny because I've heard you talk about going as a church, but I've never heard you say, oh, we went and we worked, but we helped with the church. You've always used the language of, oh, yeah, we moved to Colorado for the church plant.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it was a great time, and culture is different there, but met some incredible people. I still have close friends that I talk to on a pretty regular basis with, learning about their family, how their kids are growing up. One is getting married next year, so we're going to go out to their wedding. Okay. So it's
very cool.
Very lasting relationships that we made there.
And when did you and Blair start a family?
So 2016, we moved back to Lafayette. We wanted to be closer to family so that we can start having kids and stuff. And it wasn't until 2018, we were about 27, 28, when we had our first kid, Jackson. Okay. So he's 6. He's going to be 7 in October. London, she's 3. She's going to be 4 in October. And Andre, our newest one, he's going to be 1 in September. And cool thing, Blair and I our birthdays are in October too. So we got this whole October thing going on. But Andre, he came a little early. So yeah.
Wow. So y'all got 4 birthdays in October.
Yeah. Wow. So it's busy fall.
Yeah, no kidding. How do y'all manage that from a family side? Because we've got Asher and Oliver are 2 weeks apart, and Bethany are all within that same 2-week period.
Yeah.
End of August, beginning of September. And so we've just kind of done group birthday parties, but sometimes I'm like, is this, taken away from one or the other, or
right.
overthinking it, I'm sure. But
yeah. We so we have done group with not Andre, Jackson and London.
Okay.
But this year seems like it's going to be separate.
Oh, really? Okay.
Blair already started ordering decorations and stuff for London's birthday. She wants unicorns, so it's
gotcha.
Unicorns all over the place.
Gotcha.
And Jackson, we're going to do something for him. So, we'll see how it goes, but it's going to be busy.
Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, well, that's a cool backstory there. High level, I didn't know some of those things with Colorado. And all of that. So I appreciate you sharing that. Now, you mentioned in the intro that your mom was in and out.
Yeah.
Would you care to unpack that a little bit, if you don't mind?
Yeah, for sure. So, my mom met my dad, back in like 88, 89, something like that. And, my dad was a singer out in New Orleans. He was always in bands and, did like this R&B, kind of a thing.
Okay.
He was
so is that where you get some of your talent from, or what?
I think so, because his whole side of the family, they're all musically talented.
Wow.
Singers, instruments, the whole thing. And so they kind of connected that way, and, they had their relationship and stuff like that. And one day, they started living together, and one day my mom just left. And he didn't see her for years.
Oh,
just
wow.
like, where'd she go? Kind of a thing. Yeah. And at the time, my mom, was on drugs and doing that whole thing. And it got pretty bad. And so much so, she found out she was pregnant, but she was like 5 months and she didn't even know because of the drugs and stuff. So she went to the doctor and they were like, yeah, you are pregnant, but, because of the drugs and stuff like that, the baby may survive, if he does, it's going to be a vegetable. It's not going to live very long, so they were recommending, it's probably best to, have an abortion.
Oh, wow.
So she calls my grandmother in Morgan City. My mom's in New Orleans at the time. And she tells her, and my grandmother, she's the matriarch of our family. She's worked on staff at churches. She had a radio ministry.
Oh, wow.
So, she's, if you want prayer, you go to Mama.
Oh, wow.
And she told my mom, God's going to heal that baby, come home. And my mom was like, no, I can't believe I've done this. I'm in this situation, I'm going to do this. So my mom hung up, and my grandpa lived in New Orleans at the time, and he tried to find her. He was searching all over New Orleans for, weeks or whatever. Couldn't find her. And so the day came, my mom went to the doctor or the abortion clinic, whatever, got on the table, and then God was like, hey, get up. You're going to have the baby.
Wow.
So she got up and left, and it was just like, what?
What? Because she hadn't want nothing to do with God at the time, I'm assuming, huh?
Yeah, like she knew about God and all of that, but she was just choosing to live her own way at that time.
Wow.
And so she moved back to Morgan City.
But she heard God so clearly enough that even in where she was at, in her heart and the decision she had made, she heard God clear enough to say, oh, wow, I better listen to this and get up out of where I'm at now.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I contribute that to my grandmother and her prayer partner. She called her prayer partner, Miss Mary. She lived right down the sidewalk from us, literally. And they prayed, interceded, on their hands and knees, just praying for days, that, hey, God, turn it around, So my mom come back home.
They went to war.
Yeah, exactly. And she comes back home, eventually have me, and the doctors were like, this is a miracle baby, like we had the reports and all of that stuff, and this is nothing's wrong with the baby, So
Christian the Miracle Robertson, man. That's
yeah,
awesome,
man. I thank God for it,
Amen.
And that's why I live for him, because he saved me before I was even
born.
Wow. And my whole family, they made sure I always knew that story growing up, and I don't have this great coming to God moment, in a sense of, I was living one way and came here.
Yeah.
It was just kind of, I was always connected, and when I got old enough to really understand, faith and stuff like that, I made a decision. But I grew up in church, Sunday, Wednesdays, sometimes twice on Sundays, every time the church door opens, we were there. My grandmother holding Bible studies in the, house and all of that stuff. So that's kind of where, how I grew up. And still my mom, even after having me, she didn't tell my dad about me till I was about 3.
Okay.
My grandmother was like, hey, you need to, tell him he has a son, So she calls him and he comes to visit, and they say, he looked at me and was like, yeah, that's my son. Like, you look just like him. And so, he always lived a little far away.
Okay.
So we had a good relationship growing up. He would call me a lot, come visit and stuff like that, but never lived with him really. And during that time, my grandmother was the sole, guardian for my brother and I, and my mom in and out of jail.
Was your brother younger or older?
Younger.
Okay,
yeah.
Younger.
He was 2 years younger.
Okay.
And she was in and out of jail, drugs, alcohol, that whole thing. She'll come back for times, live with us, or we would go live with her, but, kind of get into the same thing just over and over. So there were many times throughout my life, like where these events happened, and I'm like, that doesn't seem normal, but it became normal, like traumatic events and stuff like that. And I just never had like a mom and a dad in the same house, and it's hard to say like, oh, I grew up alone, because I didn't, my grandmother, she made sacrifices to raise us. My aunt, my uncles and my aunts, they all stepped in, made sure we were taken care of, included us on vacations and all of that stuff. So we had a nice childhood. But something about having your mom and your dad, and some lessons that you learned there and stuff like that I didn't really get, growing up. So in adulthood, I'm, trying to catch up on those things. Like, well, what does it mean to be a dad? Like, I know how to do the things, but, what does it really mean? Or a husband, or, whatever.
Did you ever have a man in your life steady? Like grandpa, was he steady, or was, I know your dad was close, but not in the house?
Yeah.
Or was it primarily, hey, we're living with grandma, and then, everyone else is doing their best to contribute, but we live with grandma?
Yeah, it was mostly grandma. She was, and I had uncles, they weren't fully living for Christ at the time, like for most of my childhood, but they taught me man stuff, know. My aunt, she taught me a lot of things I needed to know as a guy too. Like, she would change her oil and fix her truck and stuff. Like, she would play sports with us in the neighborhood, like with the guys and stuff. She just loved sports, and, she was that type of person. But not really. There was a guy, he was an old basketball coach in Morgan City. And he did a lot of community stuff with kids, so he would come to the house, pick us up, bring us to the library for the summers. We'll, get books, check them out, or he'll bring us to these different programs. His name was Mr. Herman Hartman.
Okay.
And so he was kind of like that that guy, to, he really wanted to reach out to the youth and try to get them on a good path, because in our neighborhood, you look around, a lot of single moms, no one really had their dad there. They had maybe in our neighborhood a couple of people who had a dad there.
Wow.
But all of us single parents.
Wow.
So we all kind of grew up in that same environment. And it wasn't until I got to college where I really found discipleship from another man. My grandmother taught me as much as she can, but it wasn't until I got connected with a guy who was like pouring into me, like, okay, this is what it means to be, a spiritual son. This is what it means to be a man of God, and giving me a lot of good application on how to do that.
Yeah. What was going through, like, in those different stages of life where, mom might come in for a season and then disappear again.
Yeah.
And, you've got coach pouring into you, but he's not there all the time. Just imagining that there's probably some identity questions of like, hey, am I good enough? Am I worthy? Was there any of that you were battling at all?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I always wonder, like, why she doesn't want to be here with us, like, why is she struggling so much? Like, I didn't understand addiction and stuff to that degree. It was like, just stop,
Yeah, right.
I remember for my 7th birthday, the present I wanted, she gave me a Michael Jordan watch.
Okay.
And I was like, I would like you to stop smoking, And I was like, it should be easy, but, we know it's not that
right, but when
easy.
you're 7.
Yeah, right. And so I feel like I had to grow up a little faster because I was in this mode of like trying to look out for my mom, like get her to do the right things. And that kind of increased as I grew up. But identity, yes, I felt like, hey, am I good enough? Like, why don't you want us? What's going on? Like, I didn't like feeling quote unquote abandoned. And again, I say that lightly because I had, people and family in my life.
Right.
But again, having that mom, that special relationship, and I can look at my friends at school, see their relationships with their parents and stuff. And I was like, I want that, but couldn't have it. And, as I get older, people who were a little older than me, they kind of knew my mom because of the drugs and the things that she was into. And I just remember moment after moment that was like traumatic. But to me, it became normal. It wasn't.
You feel like you almost were calloused to it in a sense, or it's like, it's the 4th time this has happened. So
this is what it is. Like seeing her get arrested and stuff like that. This is just what it is. Yeah. Once I got older, I realized, those are traumatic events, and that's not typical for a kid to go through. So I had to work through those things. But it was a lot of deep thoughts and questions as to why. Like, what's the purpose of all of this? Yeah.
And then as you were getting older, how did you process those? Because I think I'm reading a book right now called Becoming a King, and Sean Johnson gave it to us a couple of years ago. Yeah. But when I get a new book, I put it on the shelf, and then after I finish one, I'm like, all right, God, what do you want me to read next kind of thing? Yeah. And so it's been on the shelf for a while, and I felt now was the time to read it. And it's been exactly timely, but part of what he discusses is being on this masculine journey as a man, and God having to essentially excavate things out of who we've come to think we are and know of ourselves. And he said, generally speaking, if you look across a generality, that happens in the 30s, when you're like in your 20s, I can do this. This is what I can do. But then you start learning enough to get to a point where you're like, become very introspective or reflective. Just God, the way the journey works, orchestrates some things where you start having to allow him to excavate things in order to rebuild, essentially. So I'd love to hear, how were you processing all of that? You know, I'm sure going through Chi Alpha, and then imagine getting married.
Yeah.
You start having these situations that cause you to reflect, if I had to guess.
Yeah, exactly. I learned a lot of grace when I got older and realized, wow, this is a struggle. Like, I'm pretty sure if she can choose and just say like, hey, I'm done with this, she would. But it's a legitimate struggle, and people deal with addiction all the time, everywhere, with many different things. And so my heart got softer, you know, during those times as I was learning and, you know, trying to still have a good relationship with her. When she was with us, it was great. It was just like, Mom, she's awesome. You know?
That's good.
And, you know, so as I'm learning more, getting closer to God and stuff like that, I started, you know, praying for her a lot, you know, and when I had those moments to chat with her, you know, sharing things about God with her and stuff like that. And, you know, so that's kind of how I got through that. I talked with, you know, my grandmother a lot, you know, and she always reminded me, hey, you're worthy. God loves you. You know, your mother, she loves you, even though she's choosing to live a different life right now. She loves you, but God's going to take care of her. And she, you know, my grandmother prays without ceasing. You know, she prays all the time. And
what an example.
You
know?
Exactly. And so I will go to my senior year.
Okay. Of high school or college?
Of college.
Okay.
At UL. So it was about 2012. And my mom that year, she got arrested and she went to jail again. Okay. And so she was in there for a while. And I had a friend from high school who happened to get into some trouble. And come to find out, she was, you know, close to my mom in jail and stuff like that. So she gets out, she messages me like, hey, I know you don't know this, but I was, you know, sharing, you know, a space with your mom, and she talked about you all the time. And, you know, all of these things. And she said she's going to get her life together after this because she wants to make it to your graduation and all of that stuff. Okay. So that was a real tender moment, you know, because she was impacting someone in there. And so my mom gets out. She was like, hey, I'm done. You know, like I'm done with this life. So she got saved.
Really? So she made that decision?
Yeah.
Wow.
She got clean, you know, so I would go with her to, I didn't know it was AA at the time, but I would go to these meetings and all these people sharing things, and it was like AA, and she wanted me there, you know.
Oh, wow.
And it was just like, wow, this is a very vulnerable place, you know, and you have your son with you, like that has to be, you know, a little wild, but just seeing her completely change her life around and years of prayers being answered. You know, she got a good job at the hospital, and like people loved her. And, you know, so we got to cultivate this very great relationship as an adult now. You know, she would come to Lafayette. We would go to Chili's. That was our thing. You know, we loved it. And
was she in New Orleans or Morgan City?
She was in Morgan City. Okay. Yeah. And so we did that whole thing, and it was great. I was like, thank you, God. You know, like, so just to be able to see her thrive like that, you know, and she was like, Christian, you were a big part of this. You know, you just stayed steady. You were an inspiration. I'm so proud of you. And, you know, I wanted to get my life together for you and your brother and all of that. You know, so
and I wonder if like the bringing you to the AA meetings was twofold, like one, accountability for her, and then two, almost as like a, hey, I made a commitment to you and I want you to see that I'm actually going through this. You know, I wonder if that was part of her, you know, calculus to want to involve you in that.
Right,
you know?
right. And I mean, it could be both of those things. You know, looking back, I'm like grateful that she included me on that, you know, because I think when you're going through those sort of things, you want somebody to walk with you or to, you know, try to understand a little bit. And I guess she just loved me so much, like, hey, I just want you here with me, you know? So we moved to Colorado. 3 years. We come back in 2016. And so again, mom and I, we talked all the time, shared pictures. You know, she had a grandson because my brother had a kid. And we moved back, and my mom, she's having knee issues at this point, you know. And so I work in orthopedics, and so she's telling me what's going on. I'm like, okay, well, you need to go see an orthopedic, see what's going on. I think it's this, yada, yada, yada. So she does that, ends up, you know, having to have a minor surgery, something like that. So I'm like, okay, well, this surgery, this is the treatment plan. Here's what they should be doing.
Because that's your world.
Right, that's my world. That's what I do, you know. And so I'm giving her these tips. I'm still in Colorado at the time. So time goes on where she should have been in a place where it's better, but it's not. So I'm like, you need to follow up. So she go back, and, you know, the doctor has to do another surgery. And, you know, it didn't go too well. And they found out, like, as she was going through therapy at that time.
I mean, were they like scopes, or were they like invasive surgeries?
Yeah. So one was a scope, one was a partial knee replacement.
Okay.
And, you know, the hardware and stuff like that didn't.
Body was rejecting it or
right,
something?
Yeah, it didn't set right. It wasn't, you know, placed the best. So I'm like, okay, I'm moving back to Lafayette already. I'm going to work for the clinic I first worked for. I want you to come see one of the doctors I work with. Yeah. So we did that. They were like, yeah, we need to go fix some things. You know, this is, you know, it's not great, you know? And so, the doctor pulled me into his office, and like, we had a very great relationship. He taught me so much, you know? And so my mom, she has the surgery. They have to do a full reconstruction thing. And I'm like, hey, this is how it's going to be. You know, I'll come in, check in on you. The hospital was, you know, not far away from the clinic and stuff. So she had to stay a couple of nights. I would bring her, you know, Chili's one night, you know, hang out with her. You know, we watch a movie and stuff. And, you know, so I go home. Next day, she's telling me she's complaining of shortness of breath and, you know, stuff like that. And so the doctors, they check on her, and, you know, they rule out any, you know, major issues or whatever, but they give her a little oxygen. And so I was like, yeah, that's fine. You know, they're watching you, all of that stuff. Next morning, I am in clinic seeing patients, and it was about 10 o'clock or so. I get a call, you know, because at lunch I was going, you know, visit her or whatever. I get a call, and I just happen to answer it, you know, like, oh, let's see what this is, you know. It's the hospital. They were like, hey, Christian, you need to get here as soon as possible. And I'm like, you know, heart drops.
Well, yeah.
Like, what?
Yeah.
So like, I, you know, race out the clinic, and I race over to Lord's, and the doctor who did her surgery, you know, he had got word, and he came to try to find me in clinic, but I was already gone, you know. So I get to the hospital, and they tell me, hey, we came in the room and she was unresponsive, you know. So as I was getting on the floor of the hospital, I can see them working on her, you know, like crash cart, you know, they're doing CPR. And I'm like, what
happened?
You know, so I'm like spiraling. So they were able to bring her back, but never was able to get off the machine, you know, and this went a few hours. And, you know, eventually they had to have that conversation with me, like, hey, you're going to have to make the decision. You know, we don't think she's going to be coming back. You know, she's just alive because of the machine. And I was just like, I was just talking to her like yesterday. You know, this is a routine surgery. Like, this doesn't happen, you know?
Yeah.
And so by that time, my aunts, you know, some uncles, they all made it up to Lafayette. And, you know, it was like, hey, you need to let her go.
What?
And so all of a sudden, I'm having to make all of these decisions. So, like, they, you know, unplug the machine.
Oh, my goodness.
You know, she passes away, and then, you know, immediately they bring me papers. I'm having to sign things. They give me her belongings, and I'm like having to make these decisions. Like, what? Like, I'm in a weird space right now. I'm crying. I'm, doing all of these things. And I still have to make all of these decisions, and no one really prepares you for that. So,
I mean, how do you prepare for that?
Wow. Yeah. And that sent me to a real dark place. People lose their moms all the time, lose a parent and stuff like that. And that's traumatic.
Mm-hmm.
I think the thing with me was because I missed out on so much as a kid, and just getting to have that as an adult, have that good relationship, that strong relationship, I feel like all of that was snatched away like quickly. And it was like, what do I do now? And it shook me so much. And so we go through the grieving process. So I thought, it wasn't until like a year later, I started realizing, man, something's not right. I'm crying more often. I'm more reserved. My wife, she's super supportive. She was very tender and like, hey, what do you need? Praying for me, friends praying for me, all of those things. Because they can see like, yeah, this is really.
Wow.
Yeah. And so it came to a head when I just like got super emotional randomly. It was like a small thing happened and I just like broke down. And I was like, I need to go see somebody, talk to somebody, and then found out, probably dealing with some depression here. And so I'm talking to a counselor, Miss Cheryl, she's so great. Christian, just very wise. And, she's been, a practicing therapist for years now. And she would tell me like, hey, we need to unpack some of those traumatic events that you went through, because I think part of the struggle and the hurdle for you is that there's like unresolved things that we need to bring Jesus to. We have to let Jesus step into these moments. So we went on this journey of like, I would share a situation that happened as a kid, like maybe my mom was leaving. I was on the back of the sofa looking out the window, just staying there until she came back. She never came back, And so we would do these exercises to where, I'm recalling this information. And then she's like, okay, let's bring Jesus into it. Like, what is he saying to you right now? And so we did that for several things. And that was very impactful for me, kind of bringing healing to those traumatic moments. Again, I didn't think that was traumatic. It was just normal. I got used to it, but it actually
became normalized for you.
Yeah. And it was affecting me in ways that I was now realizing because I learned that, I like to, in relationships, when it's unhealthy, I guess, want to always prove my value. Okay. So that I won't be abandoned or, they'll, if I can prove my value, then you'll always need me or want me around,
Gotcha.
So you won't leave, and so that brings me comfort. And so some of that was from those experiences, and I have to recognize that. And now I check my motives, like, why am I friends with Dustin? Is it because, selfish reasons, am I doing these things, with a pure heart, or am I trying to get something out of it? So it's a constant like, hey, make sure I'm checking my motives here.
An awareness of,
Exactly. And so we walk through that whole thing and it's tough. It's like, it's not easy bringing up things that impacted you as a kid. And it's like, wow, that was pretty bad.
Yeah. While you were going through that, what was it like at home? I know you said Blair was supportive during that season. Was it, I get home after a session and I'm just in the dumps, or I'm trying to think about something and something over here would still trigger me?
Yeah.
Or was it all fine? You know what I mean?
Right. It was a lot of triggers,
Okay.
The smallest thing would remind me of my mom and then send me to a place, like I couldn't. It was hard to drive on Ambassador past Lords, because all I can think about is the day I had to race over there, run in there. My mom loved Coke, and so anytime I see a Coke, I think about her, and, so Blair, she was so tender during that time and just kind of gave me space and, just spoke life over me. And, those were some of the sweetest moments in our relationship because I was so vulnerable. And I think in marriage, it's not 50-50.
Right. No.
Sometimes it's 95-5,
right.
Like the other person's doing the heavy lifting during sometimes, and it flips, and I think that's the beauty of marriage. And God realizes that, hey, it's not good for you to be alone,
right.
So marriage or close friendships, whatever the case may be. But she was very patient with me too. And I really appreciate that because I didn't have my thoughts clear all the time. I would just kind of spitball like, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I think, and she was able to help me find clarity with some things. And it was so awesome to be with her through that because I don't know how it would have been had she not been the woman of God that she is.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then as you were unpacking everything with Miss Cheryl, she was able to walk you through, and where'd you end up? You know what I mean? Through that after, I don't know, y'all came to a point where you're like, hey, I'm good now, or what that, how that season wrapped up,
Yeah. So we got to a point to where I was stable.
Okay.
And I felt like I did a lot of work. She would always tell me about this inner healing thing that she's been doing. And it was like a somewhat newer thing in the therapy world.
Okay.
But this guy named Terry Wardle, he's this author, Christian guy, educator, all of that stuff. And he wrote a book called Wounded.
Okay.
And, basically how to find inner healing. So they had these small groups pop up and people going through them, basically dealing with trauma from the past, how it's affecting you, and, bringing healing to those moments. And so she encouraged me to get into one of those. And I finally did. And I found out, I still got a lot of work to do, and the crazy thing about going through stuff like that is it's easier to be like, I'm going to just power through it, like
check the box.
Yeah. I'm going to be stoic about it, like I just got to be strong. I just got to be a man, but doing the work is hard, but it's fulfilling in the end because God's able to fill all of these holes if you allow him. He's able to carry those burdens that you really don't want to let go, or maybe that you didn't realize you were carrying. And it's such a relief, and it's so much lighter. And it's like, well, I didn't do this sooner, know. So again, I was in a group being vulnerable with a few guys, and just like, hey, this is what it is. This is how I'm feeling. This is what happened during this moment. This is why I do this probably. And, just having the wisdom of those leaders, being able to speak life over you and, give you direction and say like, hey, here's what God's telling me about you, about this situation right now. And it was amazing.
That's awesome. What was like your prayer life? Because whenever we lost my nanny, my aunt, I remember there was a season, it honestly still at times now, where I can feel almost like this disappointment raise up, like, hey, we were praying, we were standing, in our family, we were declaring, hey, she's going to live, she's not going to die, speaking life and healing over her. Yeah. And then she passed away, and we're like, God, this was your opportunity, to show the whole family who you are, our expectation, you know what I mean? And then I found myself, I remember sitting with a mentor, we were still in Houston, over breakfast a few weeks later. Yeah. And I was just like, I know that the Bible says God's a healer. Yeah. And I'll still, because we were on the prayer team at the time and, all these things, and so I could still pray for people, but I just feel like there's something there that makes it hard for me to still believe that. Yeah. And we had to walk through that and unpack that, you know. And at times I'm like, okay, Lord, I want to make sure, there's no hindrance here, but I know that was something I had to walk through, and it was a challenge, even though it wasn't. I mean, she was close to me. You know, we had a great relationship, but it was just this feeling of almost a disappointment. It wasn't anger towards God. It was, I think, disappointment's the right way to describe it. Of we were believing, we were praying, and yet she still died. But I've seen you do all these other healings, so why not her, kind of thing?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Was there any of that you had to walk through and recognize, or was it something that because it was so sudden, you were just more of in shock and disbelief?
Yeah, definitely shock, you know, but I remember they were working on her, you know, monitoring her, different doctors coming in, kind of breaking it down for me, like, hey, here's what we think is going on. Here's what we're going to try. And I just, you know, in the hospital room looking at her, and I'm praying the hardest I think I've ever prayed in my life, you know, and thank God, it just so happened, our Pastor Jeff and Pastor Paul at the time, they just happened to be at the hospital, and Blair had texted Pastor Jeff like, hey, Christian's mom isn't doing well, you know, and they were there. And so they came around, they prayed with me, and, you know, I'm praying the whole time. I'm like, God, you got to heal her. Like, you know, you've brought her so far. Yeah. She's doing so well. She's, you know, reading her Bible. She's going to church, you know, like she's living for you. Like you got to bring her out of this, you know? And when that didn't happen, there was some disappointment. It was just like, man, you know, like why, you know, why so soon, you know, why like this, you know, I didn't even get a chance to prepare, you know, and God's ways are higher than ours. Was it God's will for me to lose my mom? You know,
right.
Can't say that, you know, necessarily, but, I know he does work all things for his good. Yeah. You know, and people were inspired by the life that my mom, you know, lived in her later years, you know? So I'm like, you know, that says something. But for me, I dealt with like, should I have not intervened? You know, should I have just let her, you know, go with her treatment plan with these other doctors or something? Like maybe if I didn't do that, maybe this wouldn't have happened. Or, you know, maybe if I would have stayed with her that night, because she asked me like, hey, you want to, you know, stay here? I was like, oh, I got to get back home to Blair, you know, but I'll be here in the morning. You know, I got work and stuff. Maybe I would have noticed quicker, like, oh, she's not breathing right now. You know, so all of these things, you know, kind of go through my head, you know, at the time, and it's hard to shake. But as far as prayer life, after that point, it was some of the most tender times. And I keep using tender because I was in such a broken and dark place, a weird place. I never really had a crisis of faith throughout my, you know, whole life. Maybe once when like a girlfriend broke up with me and I took it incredibly hard. I'm like, God, why? You know?
Right.
You know, but this was a time where I'm praying and I don't have words to say. I'm like, God, that's all I can get out. Jesus, help me. You know, like, I don't know what to say right now. Just, you know, hold my heart, you know. And there were some worship songs that were very pivotal for me at that time. So Hillsong, you know, Another in the Fire, you know. There's Another in the Fire standing next to me, you know. You know, Hold My Heart, you know, is another song that's just like, hey, like I'm broken, like just hold my heart, God, you know, like there's nowhere else I can go. There's nothing else I can do. I don't know what to say. Just help me, hold me, you know? And God brought peace, you know, through those times. And, you know, I felt so close because I think as a child, you know, when you're hurting, you know, you go to your parent and maybe they can't really do anything to, you know, fix it all, whatever. But just being close to them helps. Right. But God can fix things, and being close to him helps. And just feeling his presence and knowing this is where I need to be.
Yeah.
And knowing that he wants me to be there.
Yeah.
That was really impactful for me.
Yeah, that's amazing. What would you say going through that season, now looking back on it, that some things you carry with you today, call them lessons learned, some things you know about God other than what you just shared that helps you in moments even today?
Yeah. Remembering the things that he has done, he's been faithful before, he'll be faithful again. Also being present is such a big thing for me, and I don't do the best at it all the time, but knowing that someone can be here today, gone in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
That changes things. That changes how you approach relationships and how you interact and how you, invest in relationships. So it's like, cherish those moments, cherish the relationships you have. I tell people all the time, like, hey, you may be at odds with your parents, make it right. Find a way to get back, because once they're gone, they're gone. And then it's a lot of, I wish I would have, I wish I could have, I wish I didn't, and you don't want to have those type of regrets. You want to know that, hey, I've tried to make it right. I've, tried to make amends or, come together.
Right.
Because it's so important. And especially for me, again, not having that, that plethora of opportunities with my mom as a kid, and all of that stuff. It makes those moments that were very good that much greater and important. And so as far as advice, cherish those moments. Get close to God, and it's okay if you don't have the words to say.
Yeah.
Because he knows our hearts. He knows us on the deepest levels.
Yeah.
And being vulnerable in those moments, I think that's where healing begins.
Yeah, no, that's good. I appreciate it. And you kind of moved into the ABCs there, save that for the A. What books would you say have made the greatest impact on your journey so far in your life? So
I would say that book by Terry Wardle, Wounded. Finding inner, healing, and bringing Jesus into those situations and just unpacking, why do I operate the way I do? What's my motivation here? Is that a healthy motivation?
Right.
How can we tweak this? How can we live in a way that's more Christ-like, and you're living out of healing instead of trauma.
Gotcha.
So that was a huge book. Emotionally Healthy Spirituality.
Okay.
By Peter Cesaro, I believe. That was a really enlightening book as well. Again, dealing with like the deepest parts of you. And being completely open to God and being healthy spiritually, because growing up in church, being around it so long, you can kind of, it's easy to just go through the motions, and not really connecting with God. You're maybe, living on things that he's done years ago, that's fine, but God, he's always wanting to do something new, Are you open to that? Are you pursuing that? So that book was impactful in that way.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome. Any other ones?
Man, there's so many. I like Judah Smith.
Okay.
That was a great book that I loved. It was just like a reminder of, this is who Jesus is.
Awesome.
He's a healer. He's a companion.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah.
Jesus is.
Judah Smith.
Cool deal. All right. And then the C is cherished family traditions, whether that's with you, Blair, and the kids, or, your past and childhood.
Yeah.
What are some cherished family traditions that y'all have?
So I would say with myself, Blair, and the kids, every Friday we do donuts.
Okay.
So I go
for breakfast or?
For breakfast. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I go pick them up. I am not a morning person. Everyone in my family is a morning person except me. So like yesterday, Blair woke me up. She's like, "Hey, are you going to get donuts?" I'm like, Yeah, I am. So I go get
Yeah.
the donuts, and they love it every time. It's nice to see them smile or look forward to donuts on Fridays. So that's real sweet.
Literally. How'd that,
Yeah, literally.
how'd y'all get started on Donuts on Friday? How'd that come about?
I can't remember exactly, but I think it was Blair bribed Jackson one point. Like, hey, if you do this, I'll stop and get a donut before I drop you off to school.
Yeah.
And then Jackson's the type, once you do it once, he's going to keep wanting it.
Okay.
And so then it just became a thing out of that. I was like, oh, this is a nice tradition. It's a cheap breakfast.
Yeah, there you go. And that's before they go to school?
Right, yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
man,
yeah.
so you setting up those teachers real nice
right,
then,
like,
huh?
hey, happy Friday,
That's hilarious.
Yeah, and I'm a big Christmas guy.
Uh-huh.
So growing up, again, we lived in Section 8 projects, but my grandmother, she always wanted to decorate. So
that's awesome.
It was usually the day after Thanksgiving, Black Friday. She would have her sons come over, we'll hang up the lights, put on Christmas music. Inside, the kids, we were putting up the tree, she would do eggnog or hot chocolate.
Nice.
And just a great time. And we lit up the neighborhood because she had angels, she had lights everywhere, awesome. A nativity star at the top of our, apartment.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so now as an adult, I like to do that. So I'm like, as soon as Halloween is over, it's like, all right, let's get it popping with some.
So y'all do after, so in November?
Yeah, in November.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love
we
it.
start getting ready. And so the day I put up the lights, I put on Christmas music, I put on Hallmark or Lifetime, playing in the background, the Michael Bublé, Mariah Carey, whatever. I make some hot chocolate or eggnog and, go through that whole thing.
Yeah.
And as the kids get older, they start appreciating like, oh, let's put up the big Santa Claus inflatable, so that's something that we really enjoy.
That's awesome. I love it too. We do something similar where it was usually Black Friday, after Thanksgiving. And I believe it was last year we did it a couple of weeks even earlier because, I'm like, if we're going to do all this setup, like let's have it up longer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we enjoy doing that too.
Right.
I think it's a blast. And the kids look forward to it also.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome, man. Well, I enjoyed our conversation.
Me too,
I appreciate
man.
you sharing all of that.
This was fun.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing we didn't talk about is you are an actor, so you are getting behind the big screen or on the big screen. I don't know the fancy terms and all of that. But if anyone wants to connect with you, ask more about your story, got a gig for you to do, whatever the case, what's a good way to for them to connect with you?
Yeah. You can holler at me via email, christianrobertson25@gmail. I'm on social media. I'm taking a break from social media right now, but typically I'm on there, Christian Robertson. You can find me Instagram, Facebook, all of those things.
Okay. Yeah, I think I went to tag you on something and I was like, man, I can't find him.
Yeah. Okay. That would be the reason why.
Okay, so you're like off, or
well, just
like,
I'll be back. Football season probably because that's always a fun time on social media for me. So
all right, there you go. Well, we're going to be tagging you on these episodes whenever we get it ready to go. So whenever you get back on, you'll see your name tagged on a bunch of things. I'm sure.
Sweet. Awesome. Thank you, man. Thanks for being an awesome friend and making this such a great time.
Oh man, it's been a pleasure. I enjoy our men's advanced trips,
right.
rooming together and having some of these conversations and giving you a hard time about not being a morning person.
right, exactly.
Yeah, I don't mind ever bribing you with coffee in the morning.
Hey, I'll take coffee as long as that's happening.
Good
we'll
to
be
go.
all right.
I love it. I love it. Well, I appreciate y'all sticking around with us for this conversation. I hope y'all go reach out to Christian, connect with him, and remember, no matter what you're going through and all that you do, continue to move forward, rooted in purpose, living on purpose, and walking with purpose. Until next time. I appreciate you hanging with us through this episode of The Elevation Room. If this conversation spoke to you, be sure to hit follow so you don't miss what's next. And if you would, leave a quick rating or review. It helps more people find the stories that matter. See you next time.